You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to The Real Short Box. My name is Kevin, and to my left is
Donald.
And sitting in front of me, another special guest. He's returning to our podcast once again, an honorable man that we love. We've known for 13 years now. He's incredible. He's going to share with you another story from the set. His name is...
Oh, that would be me, Darren. And I also, I say hello to brothers and sisters, but also all single-cell organisms.
You know what? I am a fan of the protozoas.
That's a good band.
Yeah. You know what? When I was in the 8th grade, my teacher said, okay, so there was this plague, the bubonic plague, we called it Black Death. Now,
Yes.
Today in 1994, that would be the name of a rock band.
That's true. That's very true.
When does the band the Ebola virus come out?
Is it too soon for that one? Well,
I don't know.
I mean, I like the movie Outbreak. You guys fans?
Outbreak's not bad. It came out back in 1995, I believe.
It's alright.
It's a little long.
A little long.
Yeah, but aside from that, it's... Yeah, I'm an Outbreak guy.
Oh, okay. 20 days later, now that's what you call an outbreak.
Hello.
Well, today, this is once again going to be an episode where we talk about a movie that Darren had the honor and privilege of working on. And that movie was Indiana Jones 4, also known as The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, and we are really going to dig deep into Indiana Jones. I'm actually a very huge fan of Indiana Jones.
As most people should be.
Yeah, even before I got an opportunity to work on it. So there's so much to get into. There's a lot of rich history with Indiana Jones, and I just can't wait to get rolling on it.
And if I may present a quick fun fact, one of the Indiana Jones films is the reason why there's a PG-13 rating. Do you know which one it is?
Oh, would that be Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
Ding, 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 ding.
Now, did you also know that there was a porno called Indiana Jones and the Temple of Poon?
You know, that wouldn't surprise me.
Wait, I thought that was in production. Aren't you the person directing it?
Exactly why I know
okay.
all about it.
Yeah, you see...
It's a solo film. Get it? Because Harrison Ford, solo. Get it? Yeah, okay.
We will shamelessly plug anything we make here.
I will in my solo film.
Speaking of plugging.
Waka, waka, waka. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the history of just pulp stories. Pulp, I don't want to say fiction because that's, Quentin Tarantino's realm. But you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I think it's interesting that the way that this film, actually, the series came to be is back around the time that George Lucas was directing American Graffiti. He came up with this idea, and in this section of Hawaii, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were actually on vacation together in about 1977.
Okay.
No, they were celebrating their victories, their accomplishments, Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet?
What happened was they were actually very concerned because the returns hadn't come back from Star Wars.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
That was
just before.
Yeah, they were a little concerned, and justifiably so. The world had never seen anything quite like Star Wars. So while they were actually on vacation together, they did get the returns back in, which was really, really cool. And he said, hey, if you like Star Wars, Steven, you're going to love this idea. I would like to do, basically, an adventure about an archaeological professor by day, a soldier of fortune by night, and it is going to be inspired by action serials that I grew up with.
Oh, awesome.
Now, would you like to elaborate a little bit on what an action serial is, specifically from the 30s, 40s, and 50s?
Well, if I recall...
The Shadow.
Yeah, The Shadow, Flash Gordon.
Phantom.
The Phantom.
Yeah, essentially, they were very long films that were cut up into little pieces.
Yeah.
That was pretty clever to maximize
10 minutes,
profit.
10, 15 minutes or something?
Yeah, very clever to maximize profit.
Yeah, and we're going to get real deep into those, but I just want to finish the story about Hawaii. So what happened was Stephen wasn't immediately drawn to Indiana Jones. Apparently, according to the lore, according to George Lucas and Stephen, what happened was if you recall, Bruce the Shark in Jaws had a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. C-3PO kept running into walls. So what he said was, and the exact quote is, there's going to be no metalware in this movie. To which Steven looked at him and said, I'm in. He wanted no metalware whatsoever in this entire film.
Yeah, they both have that experience.
That's all I had to do to sell him on it, huh?
Essentially, yeah, according to the lore. And George Lucas had said, basically, I was reading an old New York Times article. He said, you know what? This is in 1981. There is just not much that can't be done in the Lucasfilm world. Now, I know that people have opinions about Lucas and Spielberg, but I'm just going to keep it on the positive and all the great contributions they've made, because this is definitely, for my money, Indiana Jones is Spielberg's best franchise by far. No offense to Jurassic Park. Of course. It just doesn't hold up the same way to me that Indiana Jones does.
I agree. And I think that will be remembered even more so. That'll be more attached to his legacy, shall we say, when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
As long as Indiana Jones 5 is good.
As long as a certain person is not in it. I won't say the name, not to offend this person, because he might,
Shia.
I'm sitting right here.
I'm sorry.
I guess I could travel across time and do another film. But anyway, so the first serials I want to get into is Republic Pictures.
Oh, yes.
Now, a lot of people, when they think of Republic Pictures, they think of old B-grade Westerns.
Didn't I have the, wasn't it the eagle on top of, like, top. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the shows that I work on now, actually for quite a few seasons, is at CBS Radford Studios, which was formerly Republic Pictures.
Yeah, it was in Studio City, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now Republic was founded in 1935, and these serials started in 35, basically went through to the 50s. They were basically B movies, long action-packed stories that were cut into smaller pieces, and they would air each week, which essentially would be modern-day television series. Now, each episode, the key to serials, these are key points, each episode must end with a cliffhanger. There's the hero would often just be left in mortal danger. You're like, oh man, he's slipping off the cliff, and tune in next week.
Yeah.
And especially in the Great Depression, you're watching these serials, you need some entertainment. These must have been really exciting to watch back then,
Oh, for sure. And they're very exciting, very, very big. Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of like hard action movies back in those days. So this is what you get. Now, a fun little fact about serials. The original movie serial was made in 1912 by Thomas Edison.
Uh-huh.
Yes, the same guy who invented the light bulb. It was called What Happened to Mary. It was a 12-part movie serial that famously established the damsel in distress subplot. Ever heard of that, guys?
Nope.
Oh, of course not.
Really? I thought Marvel Comics, was there Mary Jane Watson, something like that?
Or, who's the other one? Gwen Stacy. That one didn't work out so well.
Interesting enough, indirectly, Thomas Edison's responsible for why there even is a Hollywood.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he chased out, he didn't want any competition in New York, where he was making his films, that he had to basically, chase out all the people from Zucker to Laemmle to the Fox brothers, all these people who would later come out here to start the major studios as we know them today, the Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
And where is he now, right? Where is that light bulb creator? Piece of shit.
I think he is...
he did nothing.
We do very strong opinions on the Real Short Box. Okay, especially people we never met. Now, these were obviously very cheap to produce, and they were brought to the audience back pretty much each week. This is, so Republic, some very famous serials Republic made. Dick Tracy, Captain America, and Captain Marvel.
Yes.
Which I found very interesting, since these are older serials.
Yes. And to be clear, it's the DC Captain Marvel, who was also known, later would be known as...
Shazam.
Correct. That was a Fawcett property, not DC yet.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And for those that don't know, Captain Marvel from Fawcett Comics rivaled the sales at one point
of Superman.
Yeah. He was that big. And the big difference was that Superman was a grown-ass man, whereas Captain Marvel was a child, a kid, that when he said the magic word Shazam could become an adult, male, strong superhero.
It was a puberty word.
Right. It was, yeah, and it was something that little kids really resonated with. They were like, oh my God, if I say this magic word, I could become a grown-ass man with super strength and speed. And it was actually very clever of them.
Yep.
It later got sued by DC Comics because they said it resembled Superman too much, and they won. They sued Fawcett Comics out of existence, basically, and then later bought the rights for Captain Marvel.
Hypocrites.
Which is where you'll see the
Hypocrites.
Shazam movie in 2019.
That's actually quite an interesting fact.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, usually those lawsuits, I mean, it's really hard to win those lawsuits.
It is. Because really, I mean, just because he's another muscle guy in a costume with a cape doesn't mean they're the same person or the same character.
Oh, no, not at all. Now, obviously, for you guys, you know, now comic books and movies are becoming so synonymous with one another. So whenever Republic basically kind of popularized these serials, of course you're going to have imitators. So Columbia jumps in, and Columbia was responsible for Batman,
The Three Stooges.
Superman, yeah, of course, Superman, and a Donald personal favorite, the Phantom.
The Phantom,
Yes,
correct.
the Phantom.
Yes.
Lee Falk created the Phantom, and they still run the comic strip in a lot of Sunday papers to this day.
Wow.
Which is crazy because I liked the idea of it when I was younger, like in the comics, but I never could. I didn't unless it restarted again. You wouldn't know what the hell was going on. It was the weirdest thing. Like it was like reading a 90s X-Men comic. You didn't know what the hell was going on unless you started way back.
Strangely enough, I always seem to confuse the Phantom with the Shadow. I don't know why. It just...
Yeah, you know, I can kind of see that a little
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, but then when you visualize it in your head, Billy Zane, Alec Baldwin, not the same guy.
There's a difference.
Yeah, one's punching people for taking their parking spot, and the other guy shaves his head bald and disappears.
But he's got a lot of bass in that voice. Yeah, maybe we can lower that down and add a little effect to that. Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this off. This is like for the podcast. But, by the way, audience, am I boring any of you? So let's jump to Universal. Universal did something called Buck Rogers, which was space related.
Fuck yeah.
What was it, Buck Rogers in the 31st century or something like that?
Yeah, but Buck Rogers, not to be confused with Roy Rogers.
Buck Rogers in the 31st century. I don't know. Something like that.
Something
I
like
remember them saying, Buck Rogers in the...
We would have a property that has a very strange history to it, the Green Hornet, which at one point starred Bruce Lee, and then Seth Rogen did a feature version of it that I don't think really went over too well.
And not too many people saw.
And let's take a moment to look at probably the most popular serial, and that would be Flash Gordon.
There we go.
Flash!
We can get in tune, right? No, guess not.
No, we tried. Sorry, guys.
Now, the significance of Flash Gordon, which is really interesting, is
Being merciless.
the serials they kind of escaped that B realm a little bit, and they show these in very nice movie houses. Flash Gordon.
Yes, they
That
did.
kind of took everything to like another big thing here.
Let me just interject real quick. I know we spoke earlier about this, but we have a theater out here. It's now owned by Quentin Tarantino in Los Angeles. It's called the New Beverly Theater, their New Beverly Cinema. And last year, he was the owner at the time, they would have a Saturday matinee. So Saturday afternoons, they would play kid-related films. Not so much, for me, I remember them from my childhood, and I didn't remember them as being really kiddish, so I went to see them again. And I took this very lovely lady with me at the time, and we would go and see these films. And one of them, two of them that we saw was The Last Starfighter, and then Inner Space. And we watched those, and it was great seeing all the parents that would bring their kids with them to see these. Hey, I remember, when I was a kid, I watched this. Right. And before they started the movie, they would play an episode of the Flash Gordon serial.
Oh, nice.
From back, way back in the day.
Nice.
So it was really kind of cool. My lovely lady friend did not like it.
Didn't appreciate
so much as me. I didn't love it. Don't get me wrong, because it's very old. It's a very product of its time. But I appreciated it, and that's where the enjoyment came from. There wasn't any real special effects, just people clunking each other over the head and maybe a door sliding open like it was made out of cardboard or something. You'd see stuff like that. But it was just cool to know that that stuff was still around, existed, and that somebody appreciated enough to play it weekly at this theater for these kiddie matinees. So if you went to the kids' matinee, every week you would get to see a part of it, and you could see the whole serial for Flash Gordon. I thought that was really cool.
And I'm just visualizing in my head, like, one of the things I say, next time on Flash Gordon, and that's like, it's very significant to me. Like, I get this strong visual in my
And
head.
like you said, when on television came along, they would use that same format. Next time on G.I. Joe. Next time on,
The Amazing Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, exactly.
Yeah. Now, of course, Indiana Jones is not the only major, film that is drawn from serials. Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, I think, is clearly, like, very obvious.
And a fantastic movie, I thought, for the time. I mean, I was blown away when I saw that.
Very artistic, very interesting.
The whole thing was shot on a green screen, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
If I recall. Like,
Which
the whole
in
thing.
2004, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Also, too, there's a very famous serial from 1952. It was called Radar Men from the Moon, and it was, as Disney cited, a major inspiration for The Rocketeer.
Ah, okay.
Which, I found great. So, where we get back here, after going through that short history of serials, Indiana Jones specifically came from Saturday matinee serials that George Lucas watched as a kid. Now, a fun little fact in the process, when we were talking about Indiana Jones, or by we, I mean George Lucas on a beach somewhere with, Steven Spielberg discussing this, do you know that even Steven Spielberg hears the word no every once in a while?
Of course.
Yeah.
He actually was very bummed before Lucas approached him because he kept being turned down to direct a James Bond film.
Yes, that's true. Isn't that something?
Wah, wah.
And nobody knows more about James Bond than the man sitting across from me, so of course I figured
Yes,
that
he
would,
know
be Kevin.
Yes.
Now, let's really get into what Indiana Jones is all about. There's certainly, you can't in one sweeping thing, say what it really is, but there's some key points here I really find interesting. So, they take certain items that have either a religious meaning or something that is controversial, like the crystal skulls. Like, what do they really do? How do they really get made? Or they'll take something that maybe some people believe in, others do not, but there's still, everyone agrees there's fascination behind it.
Like the Ark.
The Ark of the Covenant,
the Ark
from
of the Covenant.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, for those of you who are not aware what the Ark of the Covenant is, it is supposedly where, when Moses went on Mount Sinai in the Old Testament, the Ark of the Covenant contained the 10 Commandments that were written by
tablets.
God.
The tablets.
The
yes.
tablets, yes. So clearly this whole movie, you're basically deliberating on, should I really open this up? And which you see a running theme, with the exception of Temple of Doom, which is basically just an adventure, a side adventure, if you will, or a prequel to kind of introduce you to Indiana Jones, the character, is you see these historical strong figures, like in this case, Adolf Hitler, wanted to utilize the Ark of the Covenant to, of course, obtain power.
That's right.
Which you get to, and what Donald and I were talking about, one of the first 5 films I remember watching in a cinema was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Mm-hmm. Great film.
Yeah, Adolf Hitler wanted the
Holy Grail.
Thank you, the Holy Grail, in order to have eternal life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which apparently, according to myth, can allow you to heal and expand your psychic abilities. This was strongly wanted by Georgy Malenkov, who at the time was the premier of Russia.
Right.
So essentially, these are products of their time, because remember, in the 40s and 50s, it was a very unified America. Like, we basically knew who the bad guys were, who the good guys were, and Steven's films really kind of capture what it's like to live in that time period, with obviously like liberties and stuff like that are, a little exaggerated. But yeah, I've always been super impressed by the artistry of these movies, and the entertainment value is just completely off the hook. And a lot of that comes with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I was about to say that, yes.
And
his charisma.
It's great. And, and to be fair, I did get a chance to see on YouTube Tom Selleck's audition.
I was about to ask you about that.
And he was really good.
Yeah.
Like,
But that Magnum PI contract, similar to Pierce Brosnan's contract with Remington Steele, prevented them from taking on those iconic... Well, later on, Pierce would get his shot at James Bond. But yeah, Magnum PI prevented Tom Selleck from ever playing Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and I actually steal a line of life philosophy from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and then I'm going to shut up for a second. But one of my favorite things is if I'm like giving an analogy to someone or advice, I say, bear in mind, the right grail will give you life, whereas the wrong one will take it from you.
And believe you me, we saw that.
We saw that in the film, and many decisions people make in life. It's like, hey, look, there are two decisions you can make here. One is the right one is the wrong one. But I just love the delivery, and especially when he says, he chose poorly.
Poorly.
Yeah.
He didn't blink an eye, too, when he said it.
Nope, not at all.
So, yeah, I was just going to turn it over to you. I've been glomming on here for a second.
That's fine.
What are your thoughts on Indiana Jones? Is there something that specifically sticks out to you? Like, what do you feel makes this a great series? Assuming you think it's great.
Well, obviously, as I said earlier, Harrison Ford plays the role perfectly. Like I said, the charisma, he holds your attention when he's on the screen. I mean, it's like you're literally on the adventure ride. It's like a roller coaster ride, and you're following this character that you care about. You want him to succeed. You want him to stop the bad guys. You want him to defeat the Nazis.
It took me a while to realize this, but Harrison Ford has a parallel charisma to Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I can see that.
They have this action, like they could kick some ass, but they also have this kind of comedic, lighthearted element to them. Flirtatious and quirky. They work very well.
Some James Bondian in a way.
Yeah,
they
definitely.
They can kill a man with his little feel of humor with it.
Right. Yeah. If you look at both of those guys, you can see that. And with Harrison, it's like lightning in a bottle. It's so perfect for this character, for this role.
You know what scene captures that? I just thought about this right now. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, the guy, he's like the martial arts guy, and he's doing his thing.
Oh yeah,
and then just takes the gun out.
Harrison pulls the gun. Yeah,
very Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, very Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, this guy's like preparing. I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna do this, do that. Boom! It's almost like a little bit like from Star Wars in a way with the thing with Greedo. He just takes the gun out and just pops him.
But do you remember why that scene came to be that way?
I don't recall, but tell me.
Harrison Ford had over a 100-degree fever. There was supposed to be a very elaborate sword fight.
Yes.
And to be honest, like if Harrison Ford was very good with a sword, that would really make that character very different for the entire stretch of the movie.
That's very true.
Yeah. That one element, the fact that he was like, I'm not feeling well, can I just shoot him? And they were like, oh, well, I guess, yeah. Like that worked so well that it created the very essence of Indiana Jones, of what he is and how he settles things and figures things out.
Plus, it also shows, even though he's a good guy, he doesn't have to play by the rules.
Right.
Okay, sir, allow me to prepare myself.
There's that edge.
Right.
So he could do anything at any time.
Yep.
Very James Bond-esque in a way. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, we discussed this before we started recording, because we do that here. Donald is a very big fan of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and I'm very curious as to why you choose that one over the others.
It's pretty simple if you think about it. Like for me, I'm a big Sean Connery fan, and this is a more 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Sean Connery actually played Indiana Jones' father, and he also played a character called Alan Quartermaine in a very not so loved DC property, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Mm-hmm. Alan Quartermaine is one of the inspirations for the Indiana Jones series. Alan Quartermaine was a character that was created in, I believe it was like back in 1887.
Wow.
Yeah, so to mine that character to create Indiana Jones.
That's like the Sherlock Holmes era.
Right. So I like it for its history. I like it for its connection to that. And I'll get a little bit more into that here in a moment, in a little bit. But I like it because it shows the father-son dynamic, and by doing that, it shows more of the character of who Indiana Jones is. Mm-hmm. It shows a little more of his history, of his family unit, and why he is the way he is. If you look at the beginning, the opening, River Phoenix in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
That's right.
That whole scene with River Phoenix showing how Indiana Jones did why and how he did what he did, and how he created the name and the character and stuff like that. You didn't see that in the other ones. You just saw him as a full adult, as what he was. This is the first time you really see him as a younger pubescent kind of character growing and maturing
Indiana
and
Jones
figuring out
begins.
how he figured out the whip, how he fell
Yes.
in and hated the snakes and all this stuff. You see all this history, all these facts that come into play, and I think that's very important for the character. So while I very much appreciate the first Indiana Jones, I think The Last Crusade is the strongest just for that
Shows you
alone.
the soul within you.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and Alan Quartermaine, he's made a few appearances on the screen too.
Yes, he has. The first time he came about, that really wasn't called an Alan Quartermaine film. It was Canon. I don't know if you guys know
Oh, yes.
Canon.
The Go-Go
Films.
Boys.
Yes.
And had the cool theme song.
Yeah. Canon Films. They like to do what Asylum Films does now. And Asylum Films will take a popular film like Pacific Rim, and they'll call it Atlantic Rim or Atlantic Robots or something, and then they'll parody almost in a film way, but not a parody. It's just a rip-off, basically. So Canon did that a lot, to be honest. That was their bread and butter.
But would you agree, before you elaborate on this, would you agree, though, that there is a better production quality to Canon and Golan Globus than there would be for...
Oh, absolutely. Canon, they got... the good thing about the producers with Canon, the company itself, is that they did try to put as much money into each film as they could to make it as high a quality of film as they could.
Hey, Bloodsport.
Wasn't always a success, but Canon was around for a long time, and Canon is very much loved. It is a very much loved production company. If you look back, Superman 4.
Yep, the Quest for
while
Peace,
it's
Quest for
not
Peace.
great, they did what they could. They did the He-Man film.
That's right, Masters of the Universe.
They did Delta Force.
That's right.
Last week, and this is random, stupid trivia for you. Last weekend, when I was working on something, I actually put on a Canon film that I don't really care for, and I rewatch it to see if I now like it. Over the Top.
I love Over the Top.
Which Over the Top was a film that literally, even though they're making B-quality films, Sylvester Stallone made $20 million on that movie.
Well, it was like this,
He got
right?
paid.
With
He got
he had
paid.
to cross his hand across.
Life ain't gonna meet you halfway.
Yeah, it was a particular way. It was him trying to win the love of his son and basically save his family
From Robert Faloja.
by arm wrestling. It's just the most ridiculous
Bull
thing.
Harley, man. I always said a D film with an A+ soundtrack.
And Tex Cobb was in that as well, wasn't he?
No, he was not.
No, he wasn't? Damn. Tex Cobb's in everything. I just assumed.
And let's not forget the cool American Ninja movies. You can't go wrong.
Who was the guy that drank the motor oil, though? That
Motor
wasn't
Oil.
Tex.
That was the Canadian guy.
Was it?
No, sorry. That was, man, I can't even,
I don't remember his name.
I just watched it, but it was a great
He's a mean son of a
name.
bitch. Yeah. I don't remember
Oh,
his name.
it was John Grizzly.
Oh, okay.
John
John
Grizzly?
Grizzly, yeah.
John Grizzly
And he
was the
drank
character.
the fucking motor oil.
Oh, and in a very quick shot that you may or may not get, he was also drinking Pepto-Bismol.
Yes, because he drank the goddamn motor oil. Oh, sorry to interrupt, everyone. Just wanted to mention real quick about a shop in Canoga Park, California called Spiro's Heroes. Elliot, the proprietor of the store, has over 300,000 books in what's called the Temple of Comics. That's Spiro Heroes in Canoga Park, spirosheroes.com. So basically, Canon created in 1985, they came out with a film, Alan Quartermaine, which is fantastic if you think about it, because that was one of Indiana Jones's primary inspirations for the Indiana Jones film to be created, was Alan Quartermaine. If there wasn't an Alan Quartermaine, there may not have been an Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, Doc Savage did exist, Man of Bronze, so there is an element there. But Alan Quartermaine showed the sophistication that could come with the character. Like I said, it was created in 1887. And it was the character Quartermaine. He was an English-born professional big game hunter and occasional trader in southern Africa. He supported colonial efforts to spread civilization in what they called at the time the Dark Continent. It was in the 1800s, guys. Mm-hmm. Though he also favored native Africans having a say in their own affairs, which was very rare for somebody to write about something like that. So this is a writer that knew Africa, loved Africa, and was like, let me talk about this guy being kind of a savior, but also just trying to go out and unite the people and being one with these people. He grew up there. So The character spends 50 years of Quartermaine's life from 18 to 68, the start of the foundation novel in King Solomon's Mines. And he just turned 55, the character did, in King Solomon's Mines. So it was an older character. So Canon takes this film, and who do they hire to be the lead? Think about it.
I mean, I don't.
Richard Chamberlain?
I see this giant poster on your wall
Yes, I happen to have a giant poster
in the bunker
of Alan Quartermaine and the Lost City of Gold, which is the 1986 follow-up film, which had Richard Chamberlain and Sharon Stone, who were both in King Solomon's Mines, by the way, which I also saw at the Kitty Matinee at the New Beverly Cinema last goddamn year.
with a cereal of Flash Gordon.
Right.
And a special lady, I assume.
With a very beautiful special lady, yes. So, it all comes full circle here. So you had King Solomon's Mines, which was trying to compete with Indiana Jones. They thought they could take some of that. And it did okay. It did well enough for them to create the sequel, The Lost City of Gold, which is the one I actually prefer, to be honest. And it's interesting because in King Solomon's Mines, one of the actors is John Rhys Davis, who was also
In Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes.
Got a connection.
So for them to get him for that was probably they're like, oh my God, we scored. You know what I mean? It was like amazing for them to be able to do that.
They're like, oh God, we had fake dominance over them after all.
Right. So there's these Indiana Jones films that made a lot of money, and Canon said, let's try King Solomon's Mines. Let's try Alan Quartermaine and the Lost City of Gold.
Sad thing is, people probably thought that Alan Quartermaine was a ripoff.
That they did, which is hilarious because he was the initial inspiration for Indiana Jones, and for that, it was, a lot of back and forth. But yeah.
It's like people who don't know better, they look at Deathstroke from the...
and they think that he's a ripoff of Deadpool.
When it's the other way around.
It's completely the other way around. Yeah, so that's a very fun little tidbit about Canon Films and Alan Quartermaine being a part of the whole Indiana Jones history.
Now, I recall you mentioning, though, because I really, this subject fascinates me. Like, I was talking to, you guys know Calvin, of course. I was talking to him the other day, and I love how he called Canon the Go-Go Boys, Gull and Globus.
Right.
And you had mentioned a name that I hadn't thought of this film in ages, Firewalker.
Yes, I did. And we were talking, and you're talking about Calvin Young,
Yes.
right? So everybody knows, from RoboCop fame.
Oh, yeah.
And many others.
The Challenge.
Ancient Chinese Secret.
Yeah,
if anybody
absolutely.
knows the commercial, I'm sure everybody knows
We
that.
actually know people out here.
Yeah, it's exciting.
By people, I mean person.
So Firewalker was Chuck Norris and Louis Gossett Jr.
Oh, there you go.
They co-starred in this film.
Good team up.
A fantastic team up. And if you watch this film, still to this day, this motherfucker holds up. It holds water. It is good.
Isn't
it is
Jaws
fun.
in that too? Or no, that's
No.
the hero in The Terror.
No, yeah, it's a different guy. This guy's Native American, I believe.
Is Sonny Landham?
I want to say yes, but I'm not
Okay.
100%. So I don't want to give false credit. So I'm not 100% sure. But this is another Canon film that came out that had a spirit of adventure to it. Of we're trying to find this lost area where there might be this gold and we can get rich, and it's all about Chuck Norris and Louis Gossett. They're adventurers that just go from town to town, and they get in trouble, and they get buried with their heads just above the sand and stuff. It actually starts that way, so it's very fun. It's a very fun film and a very Canon-esque film, and one that I remember when I was a kid. That my mother, it was one of the few action films, I think that came out in 1986, around the same time as Alan Quartermaine and the Lost City of Gold, that it came out and had a fun element to it. It was an action film that I could watch as a child because my mom didn't like me to watch a lot of blood and gore and things like that, or films that had too much raciness to it and stuff. I was very held back when I was a kid as far as like that kind of stuff, very moderated.
Well, I mean, there's certain films out there you have to ease yourself into. Like,
Right.
I mean, the first movie you see should not be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean,
No.
you're asking.
Will
for-
Sampson. He was in Poltergeist too.
Did you just click on Sonny Landham?
I did, because it was Sonny Landham that was in it. He was the main bad guy in Firewalker. You are correct.
And Sonny Landham, of course, plays Billy in Predator. One of my
yes.
favorite. And a random part where he's playing, God, the stereotypes, a drunk Native American in Best of the Best Part 2.
Absolutely.
But in Predator, he was awesome. I mean, he went out like a G.
So, what we're going to do right now is this is going to be the end of the part 1 of our Indiana Jones story that we're doing here. We're going to pick up on part 2 here in a moment. Just want to let you guys know that you can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. iTunes, all that fun stuff.
And in true serial fashion, we should leave them with a cliffhanger. What are they going to expect in Part 2?
Porn, obviously.
Is there a person in the room that worked on Indiana Jones Part 4?
Oh, that's right. Yes, I think it was you, wasn't it?
Oh, what?
It was Darren, I
C'est
believe.
moi?
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the Indiana Jones trilogy, and then we're going to get into the 4th one where Darren actually was on set for.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. So with that, thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening, and we will see you
At the comic shop.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.